The last team to win the Stanley Cup north of the border, the Montreal Canadiens. 30 years ago, Dave Poulin was a grizzled NHL veteran. Marty Biron, you were barely out of house league. You were still 15 years old at that point. What memories do you guys have of that time?
Well, I remember that I went to the first two games in the first round in Quebec when the Nordiques, I thought, we're going to win, right? And then they lost the Canadiens. But more importantly, my high school class trip that year was going to Montreal to an amusement park. And it was the day of the Stanley Cup parade, right, late in June. And my buddies all took the subway, and they went to the parade. I chickened out. I stayed with my class. I regret not going to the parade and seeing the Cup and Patrick Roy and everybody go on St. Catherine Street.
This grizzled veteran was on a beach somewhere very sour that our powerhouse Bruins have been upset by Dominic Hasek. Brad May with the winning goal. I've had to watch that highlight like 3,000 million times since then with May Day.
Guys, nearly 20% of NHL teams are based in Canada. This makes no sense to me. Statistically speaking, Canadian teams should have won at least 5 or 6 cups over the last 30 years, but nothing. How do you make sense of this, Poulin?
I don't think there's a rhyme or reason to it. There have been very good teams. I think Vancouver in 2011 stands out for me, but there's been very good teams along the way. There were good teams this year that were Cup favorites in Toronto and Edmonton. I don't think there is a simple answer to this question. There's been tremendous players along the way, and I know you'll get into, the dollar, the tax-free states, whatever. With the Canadian dollar, the way it's situated, it's actually an advantage to be an American living up here and using the Canadian dollar, being paid in American dollars. So I don't know what the reason is. I really don't. I don't think it's as easily as saying, here it is.
Well, I think that financially there's a big impact, and the fact that there's a cap now, so you can't keep your team together as long as they used to when the Montreal Canadiens, the Edmonton Oilers, the Calgary Flames were in the finals every year or winning cups. Like, they were able to keep that team together a longer period of time than they do now. But I used to think that, especially for the Montreal Canadiens case, like, they lost something of their identity when Quebec moved away. Same thing with the Winnipeg Jets moved away. Now they've been back. But I do feel like some Canadiens market lost a little bit of that competitiveness for the last 30 years, having lost a couple of markets and now returning with Ottawa and Winnipeg. But still, I feel like some of those teams lost a little bit of their identity and the desire to win cups because they lost their internal competition.
Marty, given the stars in Canadian markets right now, like McDavid and Matthews, is there reason for any sense of optimism right now? Or are you really worried that if they miss their opportunity right now, with that window, the drought could last so much longer?
Well, it could always last longer, but I think there has to be some optimism right now. What I would do, I'd put them all in the same division. So we'd guarantee a Canadian team in the Final Four, right? And that would give them maybe a little bit more chance to win it. But now you've got McDavid in Edmonton, got Matthews and the rest of the guys in Toronto. You've got a good young team in Ottawa and in Montreal. So I think there's really hope for optimism here.
I think Vancouver's another team on the rise. And you mentioned Ottawa and Montreal. They could, they're building young powerhouse squads. So I think it's going to happen. It's a matter of time. And by the way, Edmonton and Toronto aren't done yet. Winnipeg may be in a bit of a rebuild, but there's some good teams.
As you say, for what it's worth, the Oilers and the Maple Leafs are currently listed, tied for second best odds to win the Cup next season at 11-1. But sadly, looking forward to next season, as all Canadian fans have been able to do for decades now, and that's getting old.